time for Finding Your Frequency. I'm Brian Sexton, and I'm thrilled today to be joined by John Beehner, speaker, author, entrepreneur with wise counsel. John, how are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm good. I
Thank
appreciate
you
you
for
taking the
having me.
time to come on in.
Yeah.
How'd you
thank
get here? How'd you get to speaker, author, entrepreneur? What road in life brought to you such lofty status?
Lofty status. Well, it's still a road, still a journey. How did I get here? Well, I got it to Jacksonville by coming to work for the Chamber of Commerce in 1976.
Wow.
And next year will be 50 years.
You have seen a lot of change in Jacksonville.
Yes, I have. Yeah. And worked there 3 years. Started a management training company after that. I had a real tough time. Went through and actually ended up giving my life to Christ to work with Him and to help. And He guided me to a business that I did for 14 years, working with CEOs all over the state of Florida, roundtable process.
Right.
It wasn't a Christian thing, even though it was founded in Milwaukee originally by a man who had that calling. And but I ended up doing it for 14 years, and then I felt the calling to write a book, which I didn't want to do. I told the Lord, hey, I can't write a book or chapter. Maybe, I'm still trying to get my other acts together. I'm not a writer.
I don't even type now.
What?
You've written 5.
Yeah, right. I told him, remember I got a D in high school typing. Don't you remember that?
High school typing. Yeah. I took typing too. It tells you how old we are.
Yeah, right.
The roundtable process, though, that you had with that company for 14 years is part of what you do now with Wise Counsel.
Well, lay
it out for us.
When I sold the business, I had a 5-year non-compete, so I did start doing conferences and things like that with people, and people were asking me to do something like I did before, but for Christian entrepreneurs. So we could pray together as well as keep learning, because every business is a ministry, and so you have to really treat the customer right. You can't lie, cheat, and steal in the business and be effective long term. So what you have to do, of course, is take on principles that you're going to live by. And for a Christian, that's pretty well defined. In fact, the 10 Commandments is a good place to start. How you treat customers, suppliers, vendors, et cetera, employees. And so that was fairly easy for me, but I started doing that, and I've done it for 25 years now. I'm still trying to get it right.
Well, I don't know. 5 books later, I would say you probably have it right. I have to say, as a Christian myself, when you take on those principles and live them every day, not just Sunday, right? You live them every day.
Yeah.
There's a support system you have to have, because those decisions are more difficult in many cases, right? Because you're not just saying, well, what makes more money? Right. You're talking about what's best.
Yeah.
Is that part of the roundtable process?
Absolutely. Because people are sharing with each other, and they're accountable to one another, and
it's a big word, isn't it? Accountable to one another.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Well, they give each other advice and counsel about decisions they're going to make in their organization, and so, or even personally for that matter, because everybody has family issues as well, and such. So it's a fun thing because we keep learning. I bring in experts talk about. I just had a guy talking about AI just the last meeting.
Well, there's a whole other topic.
Yeah, right.
That'll be your next book.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to write about that. It's already been written about. Yeah. It's summarized, in fact, in AI.
AI, write a book about yourself.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I wrote this book, Don't Believe Everything You Think. Okay, and what happened is I ended up putting that book, I had to do it on audio, and so I'd have to read it for 3 or 4 hours. And instead, I could do on an AI. They took my voice, and duplicated it, and the whole book sounds just like me, like I did it all. And
amazed or frightened by that?
I was amazed and delighted, so I didn't have to do it.
It worked out well.
But then another guy took the book and said, hey, let me get it summarized. And so they did it in 23 minutes in AI, and it was a male's voice and a female's voice talking about the principles that I talked about in the book. Pretty neat, so AI can work pretty fast.
Give me the premise of the book. Why did you title it Don't Believe Everything You Think?
Because what happens is we're all subject to garbage, and I say we live in a war zone of negative thinking and positive thinking. You can't watch the news now, even YouTube you can't watch without lies and exaggerations. I first got into this when I worked at my first year with the Ann Arbor, Michigan Chamber of Commerce. I was assigned to the downtown area, so I had to go to the police department for different things from time to time. And what I noticed, there was somebody there each time that had a pen and a pad to write the report for the news, and someone else had a camera to report for the TV stations. And what were they looking for? Who shot who murdered who, what were the headlines of the day? And so that's what bad news sells, unfortunately.
It does.
So we're inundated with garbage in our mind. Our soul is hurt by that. And even things like, hey, when you were a kid, you were called names. You know what I mean? And there is an evil force around us trying to take us down and keep us from what God would want us to do. And so we all deal with that, but so we can be in depression, we can go to alcohol or drugs, or we can go to the good side of things and seek God for that and start reading the Word of God, because God is the Word. The actual Bible is the Word of God. Not every word, of course, because there's a lot of history in it, but the point is that it can affect our spirit, our soul. Soul's the mind, intellect, personality. The soul is the mind, intellect, personality, will, and emotions. And so that's affected all the time, by what we see or read and that kind of stuff. So I say live in joy.
Yeah, which is hard to do.
Yes, it is. You have to work at it. Yeah,
you sure do.
Yeah.
So let's finish with a couple quick questions.
Okay.
Everybody has a life-defining moment. Most people have more than one. Yeah. How about one for you? Share with us something that helped you define who John Beehner is.
Well, it was that time that I had worked. I started a company, a management training company. Left the Chamber of Commerce here in Jacksonville, and was traveling to the Florida Times Union to make a presentation about a management training course we were doing. And as I'm driving, I see this demon in the back of my mind trying to wrestle me down, wrestle back and forth. It goes. And I'm saying, there is no such thing as a demon. My mom and dad told me there is no such thing. That's Halloween and cartoon stuff. But it wasn't. It was a real experience for me. By the time I walked into the Times Union, I was white as a sheet, terrified on the inside, full of fear. And went home that night and watched a TV show where a dairy farmer from Los Angeles interviewing an attorney from Toronto, Canada, and the attorney said, my whole life changed when I turned it over to Jesus Christ, stopped trying to live my life for myself, started living it for him. And I said, wow, and I started to cry. That means God is really real, And so that next day I was in the Days Inn down in Fort Lauderdale for another meeting, and in the Days Inn it was a paperback Bible. Unbelievable. And the back of it was a little sinner's prayer. I prayed, gave my life to Christ, and within 3 weeks, the Lord led me to the business that I told you about.
Yep.
That was started in Milwaukee, but I was able to grow it throughout the state of Florida with close to 250 different CEOs, $2 million business, and then God tells me to sell it, okay? And that's another story in itself, but anyway.
How about a mountain proverbial, the proverbial mountain you had to climb, that when you got to the other side of that obstacle in your life, that you said, well, nothing will stop me now. If I can get through that, I can do anything.
Okay. Well, I'm still looking for the top of that mountain, actually.
Okay. I guess we all are in some way.
Right. Yeah. I've had a lot of good experiences. There's a good thing I'm a part of right now. They're going to do a revival. We're renting the Civic Center, the ByStar Civic Center. We're renting that for a meeting on May 3rd here in Jacksonville.
Next year?
Next year, bring some very prominent people to town. Who are really speakers and singers and that kind of thing. And we're trying to get all churches involved. One church already is committed, and they have only 58,000 people attend these days. So that'll more than fill the arena.
For sure.
But there's a group called Pray.com that's going to put it on national television. It'll be simulcast.
Yep, that sounds like a big obstacle for you to get that all put together.
Yeah, right, yeah.
How about a piece of advice for someone who's looking for a little, how do you live in joy?
How do you live
a
in
way
joy?
that people can try to live in joy today?
So that's what the secret of this book is.
Okay.
And I said, live in joy. And what I've discovered is that, again, God is words, okay? And people don't think of it that way, but what happens is if you start singing praises to him or saying the words, and I put a few songs in there, typical, but the more you praise the things in God particularly, okay, the more you'll have joy inside. The more you'll forget about the garbage that's coming against you or the evil thinking of junk, because, we live in, as I say, a war zone, okay?
We sure do.
We have all kinds of stuff coming against us or hopefully coming to us in goodness, but we have to seek those things.
It's a crazy world. You've made a little sense out of it, though.
Thank you.
John Beehner, Wise Counsel, author of Don't Believe Everything You Think, Live in Joy. That'll do it for this edition of Finding Your Frequency. We'll see you next time right here on the Daily News Network.